All episodes of A Trial by Podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only. Much to their parents' dismay, neither host is a lawyer, journalist, or investigator. Just two people with microphones and Wi-Fi. While they strive to research thoroughly and use credible sources, their opinions are not facts. Shocking, we know. All actions discussed are alleged, and all parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. For the full legal mumbo-jumbo, check the show notes.
All right, I am Kelsey.
And I'm Emily.
And today we are doing a little bonus follow-up episode to our billion hours of JonBenét Ramsey coverage.
Ooh.
So I forgot to say this in the Tyler Hadley episode that is going to come out right before this. I'm going to call these retrial episodes. Like when we revisit a past case, it's going to say like retrial, JonBenét Ramsey.
I like it.
So, you know, I thought it was a fun little court theme for you.
I like it.
So we have 3 parts out already on JonBenét Ramsey.
Here's a half potter for you.
We've got a little half potter just because I knew there was so much stuff, and I was literally going crazy because I'm like,
even after we recorded the episode, we were still talking about it.
Oh no, all this and like new stuff is coming out, and I was just so stressed. I was like, I know that people are really, intense about the JonBenét Ramsey case, as they should be, because there's a lot of really conflicting and very confusing information.
Probably one of the craziest cases I've ever heard.
Right. And I think I was very clear. Like, look, there's so much to sort through. I'm not going to touch on it all. There's no way. And, I did my best to discern what are facts and what is misinformation and whatever. But, if you hear something that's not correct, you let me know nicely. Yeah. And I didn't get any mean comments, not from listeners. TikTok is another story. TikTok is crazy out there.
Got a lot of haters on TikTok. I don't know why.
TikTok is just like, people feel really free on there.
It's just a mass gathering of people that think they can just speak their opinion no matter who it is.
I think it's because on Instagram, most people who have Instagram, it's like you're sharing your pictures and you're like friends with all your friends. It's a connections thing. A lot of people, they don't have their picture. They don't have their name on there. They're just there to watch random people's content, not their friends. So they feel much more like no one's going to know when I start like trolling somebody and whatever. But so we wanted to do, we've got almost 6 hours of episodes on this case. We definitely didn't do everything. On the Instagram, we've got videos on TikTok. If you don't follow us on Instagram, you should go follow us at A Trial by Podcast. We've got a bunch of imagery so you can see some of the evidence and the layout of the house and all of that. So
if you're a visual person, get on over to Insta.
Make sure you're following us there. It'll be helpful for future cases we cover. If you guys can also give us a little 5-star rating wherever you're listening, that would be super awesome. And if you enjoy the podcast, if this is your first time listening, first of all, go back to JonBenét Part 1, but we only want legit reviews. But unless you hate it, then we don't, it's okay. It's up to you if you want to review or not, but you don't have to. You could just stop listening like a normal person and find a different podcast that you like.
Don't be a cyberbully or a TikTok hater and just move on with your life.
Right.
You don't have to let us know. It's all right.
And
it's not for everybody.
We're open to constructive feedback when it's given nicely, for sure.
Keyword.
But I've gotten to the point where like some of the Apple Podcasts, I think, is the only one where you can like write an actual review. Like Spotify, you can only give stars. Apple Podcasts, like I get so I don't look at them anymore. So if you send a nice review on Apple Podcasts, you should screenshot it and DM it to us on Instagram, because sometimes it just gives me anxiety to go look. But a lot of people, like, we've gotten DMs and comments and stuff with, like, constructive, I don't like when you do this. I don't like that. And, as long as you guys are, like,
welcome.
Nice about it, we try and listen because we want people to like the pod. But anyway, sorry, I had my 5-minute in.
Just the intro tangent.
Yeah, just the double check of, are we actually recording? And I get anxiety.
Thing. I do it every time before we even start.
Good.
At this point.
Good.
I triple check that.
Basically what we did is everybody was like commenting and DMing and emailing questions. I've kind of compiled them. Some of them I've like prepared answers to, and then some of them are more opinion, and we'll kind of talk about them.
Okay.
So the first one is actually from mine and Emily's friend, Brianna.
Woo-hoo!
Shout
Love
out,
you, Bri.
Shout out, Bri. So she commented on one of our pictures. She's like, didn't JonBenét like go to the hospital 33 times in the year before her death, and then a bunch of times in the weeks leading up to her death? And I was like, what? I've never heard of this. So I did some sleuthing. I did some research. Now, 33, I've seen different numbers. I've seen 30. I've seen 33. It seems to be right around there. So let's stick with 33.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like she did visit the pediatrician 30 to 33 times in the 3 years prior to her death. The initial question was, didn't she go to the hospital 33 times? It wasn't the hospital. It was the pediatrician. And she also said in the year before her death. It wasn't 1 year. It was in 3 years before her death. Now,
the doctor also said that there wasn't any sign of abuse or anything, right?
Correct. The pediatrician said no signs of sexual abuse.
Okay.
He felt like there was no abuse happening in the home at all. Now, this equals out 33 times in 3 years. It's almost once per month. And I was like, well, I don't have children. How often do kids that age go to the doctor?
How worried do we need to be about our healthcare?
Right.
I mean,
once a month is like crazy, you know, unless it's a baby or something.
As an adult, I think I've probably been to the doctor's once.
Well,
in the
okay.
last
See,
10 years,
Emily doesn't have medical
good,
anxiety like me. I'm at the doctor. I'm probably, if something happens to me, you guys are going to be talking about the 33 times I went to the doctor 3
well,
years
was
before.
there.
So this equals out to almost once per month. And I looked up online, how often do kids 3 to 6 years old go to the doctor? Because it's 3 years. She was 6 years old when she passed away, so 3 to 6. Mm-hmm. Now, according to an article by the American Academy of Pediatrics on well child care for children 3 to 6 years old, it is recommended that children see a doctor annually at this age for checkups, and like they'll do, you know, vaccines and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So yes, it is unusual that she was going to the doctor so often. So then I'm like, well, what was she going to the doctor for? Now, I do know at least one of these visits was for a urinary tract infection. And I did read that she had frequent UTIs, but honestly, it wasn't from any sources that I felt were like fully credible. And they didn't mention her. It just said that she had frequent UTIs, not that she frequently went to the doctor because of the UTIs. So I'm not 100% sure on that.
Well, I will say when I was little, I did have a lot of UTIs, and it's because I peed my pants so much.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So that can cause that.
Well, that's what everyone is always saying, like, and we're going to get to this in, I got some crazy shit that one of the listeners sent in.
Oh.
But like, a lot of people point to all the UTIs, and she also had multiple cases of vaginitis. And a lot of people are pointing to this as like, she's obviously being sexually abused. However, according to kidshealth.com, which sounds good to me, they said, quote, sorry, I just was like, I wanted to cite the source, but I was like, that doesn't sound the most legit.
Kids
but
Health.
like, I feel like it's legit.
If it was .org, I'd be like,
You're
valid.
Right. You're right. You're right. Now, it says, quote, vaginitis is common in girls of all ages. It's especially common before puberty when the lining of the vagina and the skin of the vulva are very thin. Soap, laundry detergent, fabric softener, tight clothing, wet diapers, swimsuits, or sand can bother this area, leading to vaginitis. Vaginitis can happen when girls don't clean themselves well after using the toilet. Getting a little piece of toilet paper or something else stuck in the vagina can also cause it, end quote.
So if you're wiping front to back, or not, no.
Back to front.
Back to front, don't do that.
For sure.
That's how it happens.
But like, they also said, you know, if they don't clean themselves well after using the toilet, and if she's wetting herself all the time, especially while she's sleeping and then you're sleeping in it, it just sounds like that could be causing UTIs and vaginitis. I'm not saying she wasn't being sexually abused. I'm just saying I don't think this stuff proves that she was.
Yeah, that doesn't point to that.
And again, like we said, pediatrician said he never saw any signs of physical or sexual abuse. Now, my only thought, and this is complete conjecture, so A, she might be going to the doctor because of the vaginitis, the UTIs. men probably don't understand this, but like a UTI is extremely painful. And like sometimes they'll go away on their own, but sometimes you need medication. And for a kid, really the only way it goes away on its own is if you're like chugging water. For a kid, maybe it's hard to get them to do that. Maybe they need medication, or like, I don't know if the UTI pain meds were over the counter back then. I'm not sure. But I could see if she's having these issues a lot, taking her to the doctor for them often. Like,
I said, I had UTIs all the time when I was little. Like, I don't know how often I was at the doctor's, but I do remember having to go to the doctor's a lot because of them.
And again, I don't have the medical records to say what these visits are for. So that's conjecture. But I think it seems like a reasonable possibility.
Yeah.
My other thought is that, you know, before JonBenét died, Patsy had already had cancer. And she had beaten the cancer, but look, I've never had cancer. I call it medical anxiety. I don't know what the term for it is.
Hypochondriac.
Like, hypochondriac. Yeah, I guess that is. Yeah, I guess I'm just
no. There is like a terminology for it.
It is hypochondriac.
No, there's like a medical, because hypochondriac I think is along the same lines, but I think there is like a medical.
I don't know, but like I see a freckle, I think it's skin cancer. I have a tickle in my throat. I assume I'm sick. You know, like that kind of stuff. So I can only imagine that when you've had like some really scary medical stuff happen to you, like having cancer, especially at a young age. Like Patsy was young when she had cancer, and she died. Yeah, I think she died when she was maybe 45.
Yeah.
But I could see how, well, then when your kid has something going on, you're like, I need to take them to the doctor and make sure nothing horrible is going on, you know? So again, that's completely conjecture on my part. I didn't even read that her friends said that about her or anything. That's just me like thinking, well, if it were me. Now, we also got a question about the 911 call that was placed days before her death. And this was something I'd read about. I didn't mention it just because we don't really know what happened, but this is the lowdown. So on December 23rd at 6:48 p.m., someone called 911 from the Ramseys' home, but the call was disconnected before the dispatcher could speak to whoever was calling. So no one's on the line. The dispatcher answers, no one's on the line. They hang up and they try and call back, but it goes straight to the Ramseys' voicemail. So at this point, you know, they want to make sure everything's okay. So an officer is sent to the home, but it seems like they only stayed for a few minutes and there was no report filed on this. So presumably they go to the home, nothing's wrong.
So did they think that the kids called 911 by accident? Like
that is
like that kid thing that you do, like, oh, emergency. I've done that.
There is some debate about this. I thought about this too because when I was in like middle school or high school, this kid we went to school with, Angelo, I remember messaging on like MySpace or something. And he was like, you know, he was with his friends. I was with my friends. And he's like, oh yeah, call us and whatever. Here's the phone number. And he gave me a phone number that started with 911 and I didn't know. And so I called it and it called 911. Because if you type in 911 and then a bunch of numbers after, it doesn't matter. It calls 911.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then the police were like, hello, police department. And I was like, you're not Angelo.
Mine was not that innocent. I definitely called 911 and I said, oh, my bad. Hung up, and then they called back like 3 times, and my mom had to answer. Yeah, and they're like, you know, you're not supposed to do that. I'm like, I know, I just wanted to fuck around and find out. So,
yeah. Bad. So we don't exactly know 100%. There is, I'm going to get to it in a second, but we don't know for sure. What we do know is that the call was made during the Ramseys' Christmas party that they had thrown at their home. So it's 6:48 p.m. They have a bunch of people over for a Christmas party. And like, this is the one we talked about, the sweet old man who was dressed up as Santa. And, you know, they were looking at him as a suspect. Like, this is that party. And now, again, there are a bunch of different theories on like who called 911. But everywhere I read them, it's just like no one knows for sure is what it sounds like. So I'm like, I'm not going to go through 50 billion theories.
Yeah.
The one that I will mention that I feel is of note is that in the Ramseys' book, which is called The Death of Innocence, they claimed, quote, during the party, Fleet White used our phone to make a series of calls, trying to get some medicine to his mother in a hospital in Aspen, Colorado. Apparently, he dialed wrong and got 911. So the police called back. But after checking with Fleet and the rest of the people at the house, Susan Stein informed them that the call was a mistake, end quote. And I looked up who Susan Stein was, and I can't remember. Susan Stein. I believe it was one of their friends at the house, but I can't remember. She was involved in the case somehow else besides this 911 call, but I can't remember what it was. It's not important, though. So Ramsey say it was Fleet White that made this 911 call.
Okay.
I don't know what Fleet White says about it. I have heard, other people online saying that, there's speculation that it's like, well, someone caught someone trying to abuse a child and they call 911 and then they were stopped.
But I'm like, speculation.
I feel like that's unlikely just because there are so many people.
Yeah, it was a Christmas party.
Yeah. I don't know exactly how many people, but, if it's more than a few, I feel like and how would you silence them forever?
Exactly.
Like, it's not like someone else turned up dead
it's been over 20 years at this point,
Right. So that's kind of the lowdown on the 911 call. That's why I don't know if I brought it up at all when we covered it, but it just seems like it was an accident. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's a possibility that it's related to what happened to her, but I have no idea in what way. So that's all I got for you on that. History of sexual abuse. So this is what I was saying. Oh, we're going to get to some crazy theory. So I got an email from a listener named Cassandra. Beautiful name.
Love it.
Love it. Cassie, my girl. I don't know if you like being called Cassie. I'll stick with Cassandra. And I did respond to her and I was like, hey, do you care if I use your first name? And I have not yet heard back, but there's a lot of Cassandras out there, okay? So I was like, as long as I don't mention the last name, because I feel like if it were me, I'd want them to use my name. I want Fred. So she sent me this long email, and I loved it. She basically linked this Reddit thread that was all about the theory that there was this history of sexual abuse with JonBenét before her death. Like, that wasn't the first time she was sexually assaulted. Mm-hmm. Now, I went to this Reddit thread, and at first when I saw she was, like, linking Reddit, I was like, well, it's not a credible source.
It's
but
like Wikipedia.
Here's the thing is, this Reddit thread, like, this person should write a dissertation. Like, why are you not in a PhD program? It was so detailed and crazy, and all of the, like, there were sources cited for everything that they were saying. Like, they were citing their sources. I checked.
They said Reddit thread, facts only.
Now, I checked, like, more than 5 of these. I was going to where they were saying they were getting this information, and I was double checking because I wanted to know, is this bullshit? Mm-hmm. Every single one that I checked, I don't remember, 5 to 10 probably, it was correct. They were getting their information from that place. It was a solid source. I did not check every single source on this Reddit thread. So I want to make this clear. What I'm going to talk about, this may not be fact. This is a discussion point, but it seems pretty much like this person used pretty reliable sources for what they were talking about. So I'm going to link the Reddit thread in the show notes so you can look for yourself. So this discussion about JonBenét's case, it often includes like the speculation over the symptoms like the UTIs, the bedwetting, and the vaginitis. And a lot of people point to this as these are the explanations for potential sexual abuse. And like I was saying earlier, that doesn't do it for me.
Like I said, I had a shit ton of UTIs and I can confirm I was not being sexually abused.
Because like we said, these symptoms are not specific to sexual abuse. They have possible other causes. Mm-hmm. And what this whole Reddit thread is about is that piece of information that most people are using to say that there was abuse, they're like, that is so distracting. It's such a red herring because that's not what they're agreeing with us. That is not proof that there was sexual abuse. Yeah. And basically what it's saying is that the key evidence that needs to be considered when you're looking at was there sexual abuse was that there was physical trauma found in her genital area, which indicated prior sexual abuse because it was in a stage of healing. Which we talked about this in the episode. Like in the autopsy, they found that there was prior trauma to the vagina, they thought 7 to 10 days before her murder. Mm-hmm. I don't know that there was more found than that. That's all I found in the autopsy report. But, that is an indicator. And we were questioning, well, how did they know? It's because there were healing stages of the vagina. Like, again, I'm not a scientist here, just a person with a microphone and Wi-Fi. But really what I believe it is that there are when something like that happens, especially to a child, there are microscopic tears that happen in the flesh, in the vaginal wall, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they can see, I'm sure, under a microscope that that's been torn and that it's in a stage of healing.
Yeah.
So that's why people are like, stop talking about this UTI stuff. It doesn't.
That doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
They're like, that's distracting because it's so easily refuted. There's a billion other explanations, but they're saying there are not more explanations for this vaginal trauma. Even if, we talked about in the one episode, if Patsy, she was in bed all the time, if Patsy was cleaning her up roughly, but it sounds like the trauma was inside of the body, if you're catching what I'm throwing. So that's why it's like this, basically what this Reddit thread is saying is that these physical findings are kind of downplayed and dismissed because they're putting all this together. They're like, oh, there's vaginal trauma and UTIs and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, really, let's separate it and let's talk about this piece. Because
they could be not related.
Right. And they're saying this piece is like what proves it. And in reality, experts have consistently identified signs of prior sexual trauma from JonBenét's autopsy. They're in the Reddit thread, they list all the experts, but I didn't know any of their names, so I was like, you guys, I think there were 3 to 5 of them, but you can find them in that Reddit thread. And basically they're saying, look, this is consistent with sexual trauma and there is no credible alternative explanation for these findings. So they really argue that there's misleading media reports and basically this PR defense campaign by the Ramsey family that's trying to spread this misinformation. They keep harping on the UTIs and the vaginitis because they know there's alternative explanation. I think that that's something, if there's a consensus on this, that there was prior sexual abuse happening, it changes a lot about the case.
Yeah.
Because that shows you that someone in her, again, probably more likely than not, it was the family. I think just based on the circumstances and statistically, but also, there is a possibility it was someone else that wasn't part of the family, but it was likely someone who had exposure to JonBenét previously.
Knew them well, yeah.
It's not some random person who just broke into the house that night and had never interacted with her before.
Yeah.
Now,
that brings me back to...
are you going to say Fleet White?
No.
Oh.
The fucking weird, creepy
John
teacher.
Mark Carr?
Yes. Because he said that he was like, yeah, we've done this before. It was like a game.
That's the thing. I never found any corroborated, they would have had interaction before her death. But, it's also possible that people didn't know. I don't know. It just seems like she's 6 years old. It's not like she's even 10, like she's going to walk down the street by herself or anything. How would this guy have exposure to her? I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just I just feel like there would be some link. Oh, he worked at the gas station down the street, or he was at these pageants or something. But I never found what was really that link between him and JonBenét. And
yeah, but wasn't he at the house? He was magically in their garage?
No, well, that's debatable. So this was after JonBenét was killed. John's new housekeeper said that after she saw his picture in the news, she said that she's like, I saw that guy in your garage after JonBenét was killed, and he was asking all these weird questions. He kind of, and I hate to, don't judge a book by its cover, but he kind of has a very basic pedophile look to him. And I feel like if someone is in the garage asking questions, they may also have a bit, I just don't know that if one person saying he was in the garage proves to me that it was definitely him.
Okay.
Not saying that this lady's lying, but, could she have mistaken him? I don't know. There's not that much information about this, instant.
Okay.
Now, I thought you were going to say Fleet White, and I was excited.
You've been on the Fleet White train for a long time.
Well, I just find Fleet White so interesting. And he's next on my list to talk about. So I was like, dude, you're leading me right to it, but you didn't.
Sorry.
Jesus. No, so let's talk a little bit about him. I realized when I was listening back to the episodes after they came out, I talked about how Fleet White had sued for John and Patsy's grand jury documents to be released to the public. He sued for them to be released, and then he wrote these letters to the people of Colorado. And we're going to get there, and we're going to talk about these letters. And then I never did. I never got there.
Well, here we are. Good thing we didn't follow
I was like, they're so long and blah, blah, blah. And I mentioned them. And I was like, but we're going to get there because it's crazy. And then I literally left it out somehow.
It's so crazy that we forgot about it.
Yes. So it is crazy, though. So Fleet White, and I don't know if Priscilla was part of this, but he's at least Fleet sued for John and Patsy's grand jury documents to be released to the public because he knew that the grand jury voted to indict, and then they did not. And so after this happens, he and Priscilla wrote, there are 2 separate letters that they wrote that basically just address the people of Colorado. Like it says, to people of Colorado. So I think they basically just sent it to news stations and they published it.
Okay.
Now, this is, like I said, these are very, very long and they're very complex and there's a lot of characters at play. I mean, it would take me 20 minutes to read them out loud to you. I'm not going to do that. You can find them online. I found them on the Boulder Daily Camera website. This is what I did, and I'm just being straightforward. I copied and pasted them. I put them into ChatGPT, and I said, summarize this into bullet points, and it did. And then I said, make it shorter.
I love ChatGPT. That
yeah,
website. ChatGPT.
So,
and then after you made it shorter, you go even shorter.
Yes, yeah, pretty much. But I was like, I didn't have the brain power to, I did this the day after Christmas, okay? So I didn't have the brain power to like try and sum this up and make it make sense. I'm like, ChatGPT will do it in 30 seconds. So
Literally.
That's what I did. Now, here's what it summarized. So it said the first category is the Boulder Police Department's legal assistance. So it says in July of 1997, the Boulder Police Department enlisted the pro bono legal services of 3 prominent Denver attorneys. So there's Daniel Hoffman, Robert Miller, and Richard Baer. And these attorneys, so they're working for the Boulder Police Department, but they also had connections to Lockheed Martin. That is the parent company that owned Access Graphics, which is the company where John Ramsey worked. Mm-hmm. So in the earlier episodes when we covered the case, I talked about, there are some tangential connections between the Ramseys and politics and the happenings in Boulder. But it's very confusing because it's not like the Ramseys are involved in politics themselves. So that's kind of where Fleet White is trying to explain to the public. Mm-hmm. This is why we think that the DA is not pressing these charges against the Ramseys. So there was also a draft agreement that was dated July 28th, 1997, which disclosed potential conflicts of interest. So this is the agreement between these attorneys and the Boulder Police Department. So they said in this draft agreement, it said Sherman and Howard represented Lockheed Martin, which owned Access Graphics, and had previously represented Access Graphics in a lawsuit. They also said that Hoffman worked as outside counsel for Lockheed Martin in various litigations, possibly including the case during his representation of the police. Robert Miller co-counseled with Harold Haddon, which was John Ramsey's criminal defense attorney. So everybody
was in cahoots with everybody.
In the agreement between the police and these attorneys, this is all being disclosed in the draft agreement. But then in the final agreement that was requested by the city attorney, which I don't fully understand what that means. All of these mentions of the connections between these attorneys and how they're connected to John and his company, they weren't in the final agreement that was signed, which I don't know why they put them in the draft. Obviously, they took them out because they didn't want people to know about this connection. I don't know if the final agreement's public, but the draft agreement isn't unless someone outs it. I don't know. Now, Fleet also mentions there were some delays in the investigation. So he points out that in March of 1998, the Boulder Daily Camera reported that the investigation might head toward a grand jury. The Boulder police requested a grand jury on March 12th, 1998, advised by those attorneys that I just talked about that have connections to the Ramseys. And the grand jury convened on April 22nd. Okay, so this is all happening in a short period of time. The investigation was delayed. This is what Fleet claims. It was delayed to align with a new statute that required a delay until April 1998. So I guess it's only a 6-week delay. I don't know why I was expecting it to be like a year delay. I was like, wait, 1998 is the year we're talking about. Yes, so 6-week delay. What Fleet's saying is that this strategy aimed to allow the grand jury to issue a report if no indictment was returned, possibly citing police misconduct or non-cooperation. Do you see what I'm saying about how this is very convoluted and complex? This is when we should have had Hannah on this episode.
Yeah.
This would have been a good one.
Our court fact checker.
I keep telling her, I'm like, well, you got to come on the pod. And then I forget to do. One of our friends is an attorney because we're super cool. We're cool. We're friends with really cool people.
Yeah, and she's a badass.
But yeah, so basically, I think the basis is they were causing a delay on purpose to help the Ramseys. That's what it sounds like.
Which with might be why one guy resigned.
Alex Hunter? Yeah. Steve Thomas. Yeah. Yes. So he also talks a lot about political motivation and public impact. So this delay was seen as politically motivated. Can you tell that I read through this very carefully? Sorry, it's right after the holiday, guys. It's December 27th that we're recording this. This delay was seen as politically motivated to allow the Boulder District Attorney to exonerate the Ramseys, citing police misconduct if no indictment was returned. The case's delay harmed public confidence and trust in the criminal justice system and led to a loss of the investigation's credibility. So he then says in this letter that basically he would like to see a change in leadership in this investigation. And so the letter urges Colorado Governor Roy Romer to remove the Boulder District Attorney Alex Hunter from the case and to assign the investigation to the Attorney General to ensure impartiality and restore public confidence. The letter emphasized that Governor Romer and Attorney General Gail Norton should prioritize justice over politics despite their upcoming term limits. So basically, it all goes back to there are these connections between these attorneys. These attorneys are working with the police. Alex Hunter's not pressing these charges against the Ramseys, even though the grand jury voted to indict them. And it all kind of goes back to Alex Hunter because he's kind of at the top in this case. And this is where Fleet White and Steve Thomas also said it in his letter. They're not doing this for this guy.
Yep, they're not doing this for the right reasons.
Right. So, and I don't think they ever got what they wanted out of this. I don't think they ever got what they wanted out of this. Now, the last thing that ChatGPT thought was important was the failure of cooperation from the Ramseys. So the letter also pointed out that the Ramseys refused to cooperate fully with the investigation, and it pointed to this as a key factor in the case's lack of progress, further complicating efforts to solve JonBenét's murder. So they're like, this is why I said in the episode when I mentioned the letter, I was like, this letter makes me think that Fleet White thinks John Ramsey did this.
Because why would you do that? Why would you say that about your friend?
Because he's like, look, John, he's not cooperating. He's, these attorneys that are working with the police, they all have worked with John's company. One of them worked side by side with John's defense attorney. Then, Alex Hunter isn't pressing the charges. And he's like, there is some, and I think part of the reason it's so confusing, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, correct me nicely. I think part of the reason it's so confusing is because it's not totally clear what is happening behind the scenes. But we're seeing the effects of it, and the effects seem pretty clear that there is some sort of collusion going on behind the scenes that is helping the Ramseys and is helping to protect the Ramseys. And it's going all the way up from the bottom to Alex Hunter. But it seems that it's somewhat unclear on how it's going up. Well, why these attorneys? How did they get... And why aren't the police stopping it? Well, then Steve Thomas leaves because, I think it's orders from the top down. But, why does Alex Hunter care about the Ramseys? And we don't see that direct connection. Now, if I am just missing something, or there's something I'm not understanding, or there's a big piece of the puzzle, DM us or comment on the episode. As long as you tell us nicely, we would love to hear it.
And if you don't know how to tell us nicely, use ChatGPT.
Yeah. Type it in really mean. I do this. Never mind. Just type in something really mean and tell ChatGPT to make it nice and respectful, and copy and paste it. Okay, so shout out Cassandra for this linking to this Reddit post, because I found it very, very interesting, and I love that she took the time she wrote a long email about it, and I was like, I love that you are so obsessed with this case, because I feel the same way. I'm like, it's driving me bonkers. And that was interesting for me to look into. Now I'm going back to the sexual abuse thing, because that's what the Reddit thread was about. She wasn't messaging me about Fleet White. I'm just having a brain fart. But I got to the next thing, and it was a listener's name that I was going to shout out. And I was like, well, I should thank Cassandra before I move on. So anyway,
By the way, Cassandra, thanks.
So... someone on Instagram that was at Brondo, BRONDEAU 83 said, and they had left other comments about this, but this was kind of the only discussion topic. They said, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. I'm sorry, I didn't check. Oh my God, let's go on a totally different theory and say Fleet did it because he was having an affair with Patsy. So when she called it off, I was wondering if they were kind of kidding around, we said that, but I was but I don't think we ever said that.
No.
We never insinuated Fleet did it, so I don't know if. But I try to look this up. I was like, is this a thing? Is this a thing people say? Was there weird vibes between Fleet and Patsy?
Yeah, who else is saying that?
I think that they're again, I found Reddit threads, but not science Reddit threads
yeah,
like this other
fact
one.
Checked.
But I did not find anything credible about anything weird going on between Fleet and Patsy.
But also, if that was true, then that's a wild way to take it,
I just really believe, I really think that Fleet thinks that John Ramsey did this or knows what happened. And I guess you could kind of argue, well, maybe Fleet had something to do with it, and he's trying to point the finger at John to, get suspicion off of him. But here's the thing, is
why would he write those letters if he's trying to stay out of it? You know?
That's a great point. And I also just feel well, if John was innocent and Fleet maybe did it, I feel like John would have some idea. And why isn't John doing the same thing back to him? So I don't know. I think Fleet White just thinks that John did this and is calling him out. But I was like, fuck it, I'll talk about this. Now, I also, if you follow us on Instagram, I hope you are, I posted a video, I don't know, a week or two ago now, about a possible new suspect in the case. So I didn't have a ton of information. I read one little article about it. I was like, I gotta tell the peeps, because we didn't mention it in our episodes, and we just dropped episode 3. So I was like, I'm gonna have a panic attack about this.
Perfect timing.
I make this video because I'm like, people are gonna think I don't know what's going on, and I wanted them to know that I did. Turns out I didn't. This video is wrong. So
didn't check my facts.
So this is what happened. So in December of 2024, this month, John Ramsey received a letter from an anonymous woman who claimed that her ex-husband was responsible for JonBenét's 1996 murder. She wrote in the letter, quote, "I've kept this inside for as long as I can. Please, please call me," end quote. But they try and call her, John Ramsey and I don't know who else with him. They're trying to call her. Answer, of course not. And this letter resurfaced, obviously, alongside the Netflix series on the case, the cold case Who Killed JonBenét Ramsey. And, John kind of announced it. He's like, I don't really know if this is anything. And I think it's pretty unlikely that it is, honestly, because this is just stuff that, like, so many people have, like, tried to say that they did this crime or whatever. It just seems like people are, like...
They're trying to get it for the clout and attention and to have their name out there.
They're just...
whatever.
They're trying to be involved.
Which is shitty.
Basically, in the Instagram video, so this is what I had initially read about it, was that people were speculating, and I guess the article that I read... I don't know if it was the way they wrote it or the way I read it, honestly. Like, but basically it said that this letter might be linked to a man who had previously written letters to John Ramsey, like right after JonBenét's death. And we still don't know who this man was that was writing the letters, but he used an alias, which was David Cooper. So people were saying, and the article I read was saying, is this the wife of David Cooper? And he had then passed away, and now she has this guilt. And they're like, it adds up, because here's the thing, is these original David Cooper letters that John was getting, this person seemed to have detailed knowledge of the crime. And basically what it said was that this David Cooper guy was a hitman, and he was hired by a disgruntled former employee of John's company. I don't know if it was like he was supposedly worked under John or with him or what, but he was like, I'm the hitman. I did it. This is who hired me. It was all about John's work. And he said that he like gave details about the home. So he said that there was a red model airplane on John's desk in his office. Well, this was true, but there were no pictures of John's office in the media or
so
this.
He would have had to know that.
So
somehow.
How did he know?
Yeah.
Right? And then there's also that $118,000 that's mentioned in the ransom note. We, you know, that's one of the big questions is if this wasn't the Ramseys, how did they know that that was John's bonus? Well, if this disgruntled person who hired the hitman was a former employee, it's like, well, that makes sense. It also stated that, you know, he had snuck into the house before they got home and like waited for them to get home and all of this stuff. So when I made the video, that I was like, you know, I read it as this woman said that she was David Cooper's wife and that David Cooper, which again is a fake name, this is an alias, had passed away. So we still don't really know who he is. And this woman is saying he passed away and he really did do it and blah, 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 blah. But that is not, we do not know that for sure. And the woman did not say that in the letter. She didn't mention the David Cooper letters at all. She just said that her husband did it. And people are saying that it might be the same people. So it is possible, but I guess in the video, I felt like I rewatched it after doing the research for this follow-up, and I was like, oh, I kind of feel like I made that sound like fact, like she connected, like it was for sure connected. That is speculation. So I did update the caption and everything on the video, so that was my bad. That was my bad. I was rushing. But I don't know. Long story short, I think this whole thing is bullshit.
Yeah.
I think it's someone who wants to be on the
Their
who
5
wants to make
seconds
the
of
news.
fame. Yeah.
So, all right, we got a DM from Courtney with a K. Shout out Courtney. Hello.
With a K.
Courtney with a K. I love it. So she said, hi, only 30 minutes into the JonBenét episode, just listen to the note again. And so this is probably the first episode. And it says, tomorrow we'll call. So maybe this plays into the fact that the note could have been written the night before. Solid point.
Yeah.
Except that they never called. So how do we know they didn't mean the next day? I think it's possible. But again, the Ramseys got home at 10 p.m. So, or I think it was around 10 p.m. So that doesn't give them a lot of time to like go to bed and stuff if someone's just writing the note. But also like if someone came in before they got home, wrote the note,
they
and
would
waited
have
for
plenty
them.
of time. Yeah.
So I think totally possible. Shauna asked, okay, so how does he explain them calling 911 immediately after finding the note and not mentioning to 911 that it said not to call the cops or anyone or she'd be killed? Were they not concerned? This is a fucking solid point. Shauna, great point. When I started reading this question the first time, I was like, oh my God, of course. I thought she was going to say, why would you call 911 if they said not to? I'm like, of course you would. But I was like, this is a good point because you would think maybe these people are, whoever took her, they're watching the house. So you don't want the police to roll up in a bunch of police cars and stuff. You'd be like, come in your personal vehicles or something. You know what I mean? Like, you'd be like, hide it. But they didn't do that. They were just.
Yeah, she didn't alert them at all that they told them not to call the police.
Right.
Like,
and I guess, I think it is weird. I totally agree. I think this is a great point. But I do also think it's possible that you're just so panicked. You're like, I don't even
fucking care.
Get help here as soon as possible. And I don't know in that situation whether or not I would have mentioned it.
Yeah.
But I do think once she said that, I was like, wait, this is actually a good point. Because
Solid.
Like, if they're watching the house, I don't know. It's weird.
Wouldn't you think twice about it? Yeah.
Right. Okay. Then I have some screenshots on my phone that we're going to talk about. And then we're almost done here, guys. So if you're as sick, and I'm sorry I hate to say this. I'm not trying to be disrespectful because JonBenét Ramsey, like, what a beautiful, sweet little innocent child. And it is so sad what happened to her. And she deserves all the, I wish every case could get as much attention as hers. But I am also like, I can't wait to be done talking about this. Honestly, it's just so frustrating and confusing. And I really want it to be solved, but it's not going to be by me, unfortunately.
I didn't realize that I am one with this chair. I'm wearing the same fucking color.
I love it. Okay, so here's a long DM, and I'm not going to lie. I remember reading this, so sweet, and I'm going to read the whole thing because I don't remember everything that I mentioned. So here we go. This is from Jamie. This was one of the DM, and I love any nice comment or DM we get. Genuinely makes my day every single time. Now that I've said this on the pod before, people start DMing us, and they're like, I love the pod. I just wanted to message you to make your day. I was like, fuck yeah.
Love
like,
it.
They know.
Love to see it.
But Jamie messaged us and she said, by the way, I hope you guys don't mind. I'm only using first names, but if you ever DM us and you like about a case and you think we might talk about it on the pod and you don't want us to use your name, please tell me because otherwise I'm going to shout you out, but just your first name. So she said, I never write into these types of things, but I love your podcast and how much info you give to the listeners. It allows us to be little detectives for a while ourselves because you actually tell the evidence from both sides. And I love that.
I love that.
I'm often told I give too much detail in life and stories.
Not ever.
It works for the pod. She says, with that being said, I just finished part 2 of the Ramsey murder, and I've had my own opinions since day 1, but you guys showed evidence I wasn't aware of. For instance, the mother's fabric being in the rope around the neck. I just have to share my own thoughts and opinions on what I think happened. I'm not a detective. I just think too hard into the things. LOL, hold on tight.
Same though.
I do believe the dad was sexually assaulting the little girl, but I think the mother knew about it because the rope wasn't tied tight enough to cause damage to her throat. It seems like someone who once loved or cared about her. So I think the mom maybe did it out of jealousy. It seems like she was living her life through JonBenét, and maybe the sexual assault went too far this time, and she became jealous and killed JonBenét. This is a theory I have never heard before.
It's got my eyebrows raised.
So, all right, I want to talk about Patsy's, the fibers from Patsy's shirt being tied into the rope or the cord. This is something that people are like, obviously she must be involved because if it was literally tied into the knot, but it's like, that's her mom. Like, it could have just been on JonBenét, these fibers, and then they got tied into the cord. I want to make that clear. I did find this theory really interesting, though, because we kept talking about, like, a lot of people claim that people who think that the Ramseys did this, a lot of people, especially like the Patsy and Burke people, they think it was an accident of some sort. And then the Ramseys like did all this to cover it up. And me and Emily kept saying, why would you sexually assault her though?
Yeah. Like why take it to that extent?
Why? Yeah.
Just to cover something up.
Right. You could cover it up without doing that.
Yeah.
And so what what Jamie was saying was, well, maybe the dad was sexually abusing her. The mom knew about it. Maybe there was some weird stuff going on. And then the mom got so jealous that she like kind of broke and like killed JonBenét during the sexual assault. And this made me think of Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka, which they were serial killers in Canada. They were a couple, and they would abduct and sexually assault women together. And like when you really dig deep into the case, it seems like Paul Bernardo was like raping all these women separately. But then with Karla, they would keep these women for days. They would assault them. They would record it. And then it really seemed like Karla was the one pushing for them to be killed. And it was some sort of like jealousy thing, even though she was partaking in these sexual assaults. So it reminded me of that. I think that's a really interesting theory.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's the problem with this case is whoever did this, there doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence to support that they did it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not to say that it's because it's a bad theory or this isn't what happened. It just, there's not a ton of evidence for anything in this case. But I thought that was really interesting. I never heard that before. I'm like, wait, this is kind of a good point. It does explain the sexual assault. It explains the, why Patsy would have been involved if John was doing, and all of this stuff. So really interesting. Again, no way to know. All right, my last theory, and then we are done for the day. So this one came from TikTok, so you know it's going to be good. Let me find the first one. So basically, I don't know, TikToks, the way the comments work in TikTok, they never show up in order of like, so people leave multiple comments and you have to like piece them together. I can't figure it out. I'm just going to read you all these comments separately. This is from a person. I don't think they're a listener. I kind of hope not. But this person's theory is that JonBenét is actually Katy Perry.
Oh my God, I've fucking seen this.
So let's get into it. By the way, I'm not laughing. I'm laughing at how ridiculous this person posing this theory is, okay? Yeah. I'm really not trying to make fun of like JonBenét or this case or anything. Or
even Katy Perry, for that matter.
Have to have a good laugh at this crazy person. Sorry if you think JonBenét is Katy Perry, but yeah.
Not, because that's a wild fucking theory.
So they said, the detective said the parents were very cordial and John was making calls going through mail, yet she said she knew they did it, except they didn't kill their daughter. They cared so much for her. And then in parentheses, they put KP. Then they commented again, and they said, Katy Perry's logo is literally KP. Why? JonBenét, in parentheses, Katy Perry. John was rich elite with close ties to military-industrial complex. It was most likely a sacrifice of an unknown lookalike. Okay?
Wow.
If there's anybody that could pull this off, it's them. JonBenét was always groomed into being a big star. Katy Perry's middle name is Elizabeth. Hold on. Which is JB's late sister. Because JonBenét's sister, Beth, was the one that died. It's
also one of the most fucking common middle names of all time.
And so this is when I responded to this person. I said, I say this in the most loving way possible. I think you should talk to a professional about these beliefs. I am wishing you well. And I do mean that in the best way possible.
Loving way, yes.
I'm not trying to be, and now I'm like, I didn't give you their names, so I'm not fully out in them. But like, if you genuinely believe this theory, I just want you to get a little bit of help.
To be honest, I want to talk to them about what other theories they have, because why would that be an entertaining conversation?
So I said that, and then this person honestly came back with counter arguments about first of all, they knew that I was being so mean to them with that comment I gave back of, I hope you seek professional help with this.
And they're like, no, we got to double down.
They were basically like, I know you're being sarcastic, blah, blah, blah. But they did bring back a counter argument that I find very difficult to refute, okay? Are you ready for it?
Let's hear it.
For the numerology nerds out there, the number of days between JonBenét and Katy Perry's birthday are 1899. I don't know what that means.
Okay.
1,899 days between their birthdays.
Isn't that around the time the Constitution was also signed?
I don't know. Oh, wait. Sorry. They explained it. I had to go to the next screenshot. From astrology.com, quote, 1899 carries the energy of new beginnings and spiritual growth. It signifies an auspicious time to manifest your dreams and goals, end quote.
Wow.
So obviously, because there's 1,899 days between JonBenét's birthday and Katy Perry's birthday.
It's the only explanation.
They must have sacrificed a lookalike to JonBenét that somehow no one knows that this little girl was killed or something or went missing. And then JonBenét grew up to be Katy Perry because 1899 carries the energy of new beginnings and spiritual growth and a time to manifest your dreams and goals. So I was like, you're right. I have no counter argument for that. That makes perfect sense.
You had me. You got me.
That makes perfect sense. Oh, that's all. Why didn't you say that in the first place?
Wow.
Basically.
He solved it.
And I think I posted
Katy Perry's JonBenét.
I think I already posted this joke on our Instagram story, but I'm going to make it again for anyone who doesn't. I literally was like, my toxic trait is that I think this person like needs professional help. But also I was like, this comment they made about spiritual growth and auspicious time to manifest your dreams and goals. I was like, was this meant for me? This messaging? Is this a sign from the universe? My dreams are going to come true?
Are you reading my tarot cards right now? Or?
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. Let us know what you think in the comments. Do you guys think that Katy Perry is JonBenét? And honestly, that's a bad joke because obviously not. I'm making it a joke, but like the people who make these fucking crazy theories, I've already talked about the Adam Walsh one. People think Adam Walsh was sacrificed to the lizard people and a lookalike was killed and Adam Walsh is alive and he's the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. The people who believe these theories, first of all...
Did I say amazing imagination? Keep it to yourself.
Yeah, like, first of all, I feel for them because I do think that bad stuff must have happened to you for you to believe that there is some crazy behind the scenes, like, to that level for these things that don't matter. Like, I get it when they're, you know, for politics or people have conspiracy theories about 9/11 and stuff like I kind of understand that more. But when it's like, well, why would JonBenét just be a pop star? Why did she have to become somebody different? And you know what I mean? Like, I think something bad must have happened to them. So yeah, I'm joking and I'm like, oh, they're cuckoo nuts. And I know some people are going to be offended by me saying that. I think people who like genuinely believe that in their heart of hearts, I do think probably some bad stuff has happened to them. And like, I do hope they get help and I do wish them the best. But also, like, it's harmful to say this stuff. Like,
once you put it out there, people are so gullible. They'll take it and run with it and tell everyone they know about it.
And it's like, okay, we're talking about JonBenét, whose case is so famous. She's obviously getting the attention she deserves. And, you know, it's hard with JonBenét because a lot of people believe the parents are involved. So there's no empathy for them. But like, picture a case where it's like the parents aren't involved and like Adam Walsh. Truly do not believe the parents had anything to do with Adam Walsh.
No.
And like, people are making all these crazy theories and they're blaming John Walsh for it. And I'm like,
that's kind of insulting, you know? Like, that's so insulting for them, 100%, you know?
Like, people are saying Adam Walsh was kidnapped from his parents, his mom, I guess, but his parents were John and Rive. People are saying he was kidnapped, he was decapitated. They only found his head. They never found his body. Can you imagine that happening to your fucking child that you love? Then all these people,
random fucking people that you've never met,
people are saying that John Walsh did it and that he sacrificed Adam so he could become famous with his TV show.
Bonkers.
I'm like, dude, what are you taught? Like, it's just crazy. And it's hurtful. It's harmful. It's harmful to the families, but it's also harmful to like society, I think, to spread crazy stuff like this. And especially with the internet, it just spreads like wildfire. So again, I'm not trying to make I do find this funny. I'm not trying to be like super, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I think the fact that someone genuinely believes that JonBenét is Katy Perry, surface level, fucking hilarious. That is some wild shit. Deep level, I feel like this person has probably gone through some horrible stuff and I feel for them and I do hope they get help. And I do wish them the best. But back to surface level, like, that is outlandish.
Yeah, we're not here for it.
Anyway, any final thoughts on JonBenét Ramsey, Emily?
Part of me, like in the back of my brain, just hopes that if John Ramsey knows, which I have a feeling that he knows more than he's saying he does, I hope he says something about it before he dies. And
I don't think he will. I've thought about this.
I hope that she is resting peacefully and that she will get justice eventually, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But I hope it does.
I hope it does too. I've thought about this. Like, do we think that there will be a deathbed confession? And I just like, if it was John Ramsey, I just don't think so because he's got children and grandchildren that, very wholeheartedly stand behind him and defend him. And I just think he wouldn't want them to know.
Yeah.
I hope, if he did do it, I do hope there is a deathbed confession. I guess my final thought is like, I do think the parents at least know what happened. Mm-hmm. That's just my gut instinct. And,
Me too.
And I think and I don't think what happened was an accident. I think that the ransom note is a total cover up. I don't know. I'm not 100% convinced that it was just the parents alone just killed her and whatever. Yeah. I think someone in that family knows what happened.
I mean, the evidence that they have, like the note, like where she was found, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like,
right. But obviously that's just our opinion and that is not based in fact. And you should do your own research.
Right. The most unprofessional opinion that I could possibly give.
Right. Don't take when we give our opinion, don't take it as fact. We're not, professionals of any kind. Like, don't sue us.
I mean, it'd be cool if we were, but we're not.
I'm just telling you, like, that's kind of what I think. I have no idea if I'm right.
Right.
I don't think anybody
just
does.
What?
As much as people are convinced they know what happened, I don't think anybody really knows. So, all right. We did it.
And that's it.
JonBenét Ramsey, this chapter is closed for us. You know what? I will say, I said earlier, so ready to never talk about this again. I hope that whatever. But I do hope we talk about it again because the only time I will talk about this again is when this case is solved. Then I will talk about it again. So I do hope we end up talking about it again because I hope this is solved one day.
Till then, though.
We're Audi 5000. So anyway, this is probably coming out within the first couple days of the new year. So I hope you guys had a good, safe New Year's Eve. I hope you did not listen to Emily from the last episode and drink and drive safely. I hope you just did not drink and drive because that's what we were really trying to say. Don't drink and drive. So
I was going to cut that out.
I hope you guys all... Oh, I have one last thing to say. I'm going to leave you off on a really sad note.
Oh, no.
Because I keep thinking about this.
We're already starting the year off sad.
Yeah, sorry. Max DeVries's mom messaged me. I saw it today. And she sent me this sweet, paragraph. Like, Merry Christmas. I hope you have, all the blessings and have a happy new year. And this woman, I want to hug her.
Yeah.
She's so sweet. And it just had me thinking about, we tell all these horrific stories. And again, I'm very honest and realistic. True crime is very intriguing. It's very interesting. People do listen to it for entertainment purposes. But I always like to give the reminder, these stories are very real. And around the holidays, when Yvonne messaged, I was just she's celebrating. I don't even know what Christmas it would be without Max. With no answers and nothing. And I think one thing about true crime is, it is very dark. It brings us down sometimes. But I think it also, if you're consuming true crime content of any sort all the time, it is a constant reminder to be so grateful for what you have and to live every day to the fullest and to really just appreciate your life and what's going on in your life. And you don't know. This holiday season could be the last one with somebody you love. I really hope it's not for any of you guys. I really hope so. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to give that reminder to everybody. These stories that we tell are real. And everyone that we have talked about in the last 6 months of the podcast, their families are living through holidays and Christmases and Hanukkahs and birthdays and New Year's without these people every year. And a lot of them are living through all those without justice and without answers. And we need to remember that. And also on the same side, be grateful for what we have in our own lives, because, these people never expected things like this to happen to them. I think most of them. So yeah, that's my depressing message for the day. Sorry.
I mean, recognize what you have. Be grateful. Be aware.
I was just thinking about the families over the holidays.
Yeah, it's sad.
It is sad. But I know a lot of them have really pushed through, and they've done their best to find happiness in spite of everything that they've been through. So it's really inspiring. But yeah, we're going to leave off on that. I hope you guys all had a wonderful holiday season. You have a happy new year.
Stay safe.
Stay safe and make this year your bitch. Okay.
Huzzah.
Huzzah.